Okay, let's continue. Dedication whirling and ordnance brewing. We have returned, Lady Rosamund, Brunhilde announced. She and Lazletta had come back from the gathering of attendants. While I was reading the night stories Hartman had brought me, it was a highly important meeting during which attendants shared information on events between spring and summer and discussed their plans moving forward. This is for you, a letter of invitation from the music professors. The music professor's attendant had evidently been there as well. They had given Brunhilde the letter she was now handing to me. It informed me that our tea party was going to be held 3 days from now. At first I was a little confused that the date had been settled without my input, but Brunhilde explained with a troubled smile. It is already known to the professors that all of the Ehrenfest second years had passed, so they assume you have no plans. It seems they grasp our own grades and studies as well. I must develop my skills further so that you may have an opportunity to refuse even professors next time. She said, her lips pursed in slight vexation. Ehrenfest had only started receiving invitations from professors last year, so there was no way we could turn them down. Even so, Brunhilde was determined to learn the dance that was Royal Academy politics, so it seemed safe to leave things to her. Lady Rosamund, no other duchy had all of its second years passed on the first day, so tales of Ehrenfest had become quite popular among the professors in other duchies. Lazletta said with a gentle smile, we have garnered much attention for a variety of reasons. It has become common knowledge that all of our second years have passed their written lessons, so I expect there to be even more opportunities for you to socialize. Brunhilde rested a hand on her cheek. Will it not be Lady Charlotte who will be socializing more, she asked. Invitations will truly start to arrive once socializing season begins, by which point Lady Rosamund will have returned to Ehrenfest for the dedication ritual. In that case, I will need to socialize as much as I can before my departure, for Charlotte's sake. Such is my duty as her older sister, I declared. Lazletta giggled at my fiery determination. Lady Rosamund, little sisters enjoy their older sisters relying on them and recognizing their growth. Please do entrust at least some of the socializing to Lady Charlotte. She's going to have to, considering the dedication ritual, because not even Wilfred and Charlotte can help her on this one. But yes, so Charlotte is going to get some socializing in. Just not all of it like Wilfred had last year. Which actually, that helps him out too. Because last year, he had nobody to help him as an Archduke candidate, and he had to do all the socializing by himself. So now he has Charlotte there to help him. Her words reminded me of all the times when Tully would praise me, and when she had relied on me when she wanted to meet Karina. So an older sister must also praise their little sister and rely on them to encourage their growth, I muttered. Becoming a wonderful older sister is quite the challenge. I just want to be someone she can rely on. Oh my, well I am sure you can prove how reliable you are by successfully finishing the tea parties with the professors, who need your presence in particular, and the book-sharing tea party with Dunkelfelger. Ehrenfest has almost never received invitations from professors and top-ranking duchies before. I resolved to pour my all into my upcoming tea parties, eager to help Charlotte however I could, and then gather my attendants and my personal musician, Rosina, to discuss meetings with the music professors. 6 bell rang as we were deciding what to bring as gifts and which new songs to choose. Only one late noble first year showed up for dinner. The rest were still unable to leave their rooms. Lord Wilfrid, Lady Rosamund, we have received replies from Ehrenfest, Ignaz revealed. He had with him the letters he had received from the knights guarding the teleportation hall. Uh-oh. Hartmut took them all, skimmed them, and gave me only one. This one is addressed to you, Lady Rosamund, he said. This one is for you, Cornelius. It is from your mother. Uh-oh. Cornelius grimaced as he accepted the letter and started reading it. Soon enough, he was staring at the ceiling with his head in his hands. Something headache-inducing had clearly occurred. Judging by his expression, Elvira was either instructing him to reveal who he was escorting, or she had already worked it out through some devilish means. I imagine it's the latter on this one. This lady is not to be trifled with. You do not want to get on her sleuthing target, or else you will be in deep duty. After a moment, I gazed down at my own letter. It was from Ferdinand, a scathing response to everything contained within our reports, no doubt. But when I read its contents, it seems you do not even know what the word peaceful means. Learning it should be your greatest priority. I found there was hardly any berating whatsoever. Instead, there was simply a short list of instructions telling me to keep my water gun under wraps until the time came when I could show him, and to entrust all non-essential socializing matters to Charlotte. What? There's no scolding. He didn't lecture me at all. I reread the letter over and over, checking repeatedly for a continuation. I had come to expect at least several pages criticizing my behavior. I know, that's what I thought too! I figured he would be demanding that you come back home so you could show him the water gun thing at least. I figured that would be something he'd want to see. And yet there wasn't so much as a single harsh line. It made things even scarier. Hartman, did you truly include everything in my report, I asked. Did you mention that I tore the canopy of my bed to pieces with my water gun? Did you receive a scolding? He replied. Just a small one, I said, hugging the letter to my chest so that he couldn't read it. I was getting more and more concerned. Have I gone beyond the point of no return? Does he consider me not even worth scolding anymore? Oh. That would mean he gave up on you. Oh, that's not good. Ferdinand was the type of person to ignore those he didn't care about unless they were actively getting in his way. And when they were, he would mercilessly eradicate them. Oh no. Oh no. This is way scarier than him getting mad at me. No! Was the letter that severe? Hartman ventured. You appear quite unwell. I'm fine, I replied. I'm going to do exactly as Ferdinand instructs me. I'm going to behave. So please, yell at me, Ferdinand. Just so she knows that you're not giving up on her. That night, my dreams were all about Ferdinand scolding me to death. Jesus, dude, you had more of an impact on her than you think. It must have somewhat relieved my anxieties, so I woke up the next morning feeling refreshed. Oh, okay. Okay. That helped, kind of. As I made my way to the dining hall for breakfast, I saw some of the first years coming out of their rooms with their divine wills absorbed. Charlotte was still nowhere to be seen, but that made sense. Arch nobles generally needed more time than lay nobles. Earth Day alone wasn't enough for me either, Wilfried noted. I needed to wait until noon on Water Day, so I expect she'll come down at lunchtime. I nodded and then glanced at the staircase leading up to Charlotte's room. We have whirling practice this afternoon. Is she going to be okay? Of course, he assured me. The most important thing for first years is to watch the seniors practice, remember? Practice isn't that long anyway. He had a point. Archduke candidates of all years practiced their dedication whirling together, and since the senior students were prioritized, those in their first year spent very little time actually whirling themselves. During my first year, I had spent the entirety of my whirling classes watching Eglantine. Could anyone graduating this year, even compared to her wondrous talent? I was a little excited to find out. Of course, only Archduke candidates participated in dedication whirling. Others would focus on things like sword dancing or music. Charlotte had safely absorbed her divine will in time to have lunch with us, and now she, Wilfried, and I were headed to the small hall. Several Archduke candidates had already gathered when we arrived. Everyone was so used to the ways of the Royal Academy by now they promptly separated into years and started practicing. Now then, the older students will demonstrate the fundamentals, the professor said. First and second years, watch carefully. I watched as the fifth and sixth years began to whirl, but nobody caught my attention like Eglantine did. The other Archduke candidates I could recognize at a glance were Adolphine of Drwankel and Rudiger of Frembeltag. Adolphine was performing as the goddess of wind. It was a very appropriate role for Drwankel, but when I saw Adolphine whirl, I started to wonder whether she should have been playing the goddess of light instead. She was certainly more talented than the girl who currently had the part. Meanwhile, Rudiger was performing as the god of life. It seemed an odd decision to me since the two weren't at all similar in appearance, but it was probably because Rudiger wasn't skilled enough to overcome the duchy ranking barrier and whirl as the god of darkness or the god of fire instead. The fifth years were whirling a short distance away from the sixth years, and with very serious expressions. It was during one's fifth year that the roles for the graduation ceremony were finalized, so they were all working their hardest. Among them were Lestalot of Dunkelfelger and Detlinde of Arensbach, who were aiming for the roles of the god of darkness and the goddess of light, respectively, as expected of Archduke candidates from greater duchies. Lestalot is a surprisingly good whirler. His center axis was kept firm and straight. Maybe he had trained a lot in Dunkelfelger. Detlinde, on the other hand, seemed pretty average. Then again, maybe it was wrong of me to compare everyone to Eglantine. Yeah, a little bit, considering not everybody is that talented. She's probably just a natural prodigy at it. After observing the older students for a bit, the third and fourth years began to practice as well. The first and second years continued to watch the older students practice until space opened up for them, much like last year. Good day to you, Lady Rosamine, Lady Charlotte. Good day, Lady Adolphine. When it came time for us to take a break, Adolphine approached us with a smile. It was a move that attracted an unmistakable amount of attention. A 6-year from a greater duchy had willingly addressed younger students of a mere 10th ranked duchy. I was frozen to the spot, but Charlotte stepped forward and returned the warm expression. You 6 years certainly are excellent whirlers, she said. I found myself enraptured by your dancing. Oh. You haven't seen Lady Eglantine dance. If you had, you wouldn't be saying that. My, if you continue to work your hardest, Lady Charlotte, this will all seem easy to you come your final year, Adolphine replied, regarding Charlotte with her amber eyes. The key is to practice every day. It was then that I remembered Charlotte had also been singled out by Adolphine during the fellowship gathering. I stepped forward in an attempt to block her from sight as her older sister I needed to protect her. Lady Adolphine, I see you are to perform as the goddess of wind, I said. It occurs to me that this is the perfect role for an archduke candidate of Durango, but given your talent, would you not also be suited to perform as the goddess of light? I appreciate your kind words, Lady Rosamond, but in my heart, the goddess of light may be performed only by Lady Eglantine. I would not wish to besmirch the honor with my own whirling. So, you agree that her whirling is on another level completely. Good. At least you both agree on that one. That was an opinion I can understand completely. Eglantine really was perfect for the role. I nodded my agreement, which elicited a refined chuckle from Adolphine. How are your plans, Lady Rosamond? Ehrenfest has displayed such an academic excellence, I suppose you will soon be starting to socialize. We have finished our written lessons early, but our practical ones will take us some time, and with Charlotte having been invited as well, I believe it will take a bit longer still, I replied. The first years were now working at a more reasonable pace, hoping to achieve and secure the reward for the highest grades, and Charlotte was doing her best to ensure that no unnecessary mistakes were made. Practical lessons certainly do take time, no matter how well one might prepare, Adolphine said. I similarly intend to finish mine as soon as I am able, but we can hardly work as the younger students do. Classes became more difficult with each year one advanced in the Royal Academy, and one received more tasks to complete as older students began socializing later. Even so, Adolphine assured me that she would still manage to meet with me before I returned to Ehrenfest. I don't know. I am looking forward to our meeting ever so much. There is much we must discuss, Adolphine concluded with a smile and then departed. Detlinde, Wilfried, and Rudiger came over barely a moment later. It seemed as though they had been waiting for an opportunity. Hello, Lady Rosamond, Detlinde said with an exceptionally kind smile. I don't like that. I intend to hold another party among cousins this year. If all stays well, I was hoping to welcome Lady Charlotte into our family here. I would be delighted, Charlotte responded with an equally radiant smile. I have not yet had an opportunity to meet with my extended family. And so, the tea party among cousins was arranged. Much like last year, it was planned to be held once socializing began, which meant I would be unable to attend once again. Of course! Of course! Detlinde wants to keep Rosamond away from all this. My apologies, Lady Detlinde. I am expected to be away from the Royal Academy at that time, I said. I considered suggesting that the tea party be held a little earlier as a result, but before I could, Detlinde brought her eyebrows together in a show of disappointment and gave a heavy, regretful sigh. Oh dear, you're going to be absent once again? My disappointment is immeasurable, but your duties at home are quite important. Fear not, I will not force myself upon you. You can still attend, Lady Charlotte, can you not? Indeed, Charlotte replied. Then she gave me a questioning look. My role in the temple meant that I was going to be absent during socializing season. Everyone knew that, and it was obvious that Detlinde had no intention of changing the date. I was a little worried for Charlotte, considering that Detlinde was kind of annoying, and the sort of person who did spiteful things for seemingly no reason. But apparently, Detlinde was just like Veronica in how she cared for her family. She seemed to perceive Charlotte as kin, and with Wilfried in attendance too, there was presumably nothing to worry about. Considering Wilfried's not good when it comes to euphemism-laden insults, Charlotte will have to be the one to figure that out, because Wilfried does not. At least last time we did all this, anyway. Lady Rosamond, came a quiet voice. Break time is now over. Students return to your places. The professor shouted. Handler was drowned out entirely, and she gave a quiet "aww" as we were urged to return to our practice. We exchanged waves and smiles, but that was it. I wish I could have spoken with Handler about the library committee instead of talking to Detlinde. I agree. Handler's really a lot nicer than Detlinde. And a lot more genuine, too. It was time for the younger students to practice whirling. I was already somewhat experienced from my lessons in the temple, so in my case, the biggest challenge was trying not to give a serious prayer to the gods. Thankfully enough, I managed to avoid causing a massive scene and ended up passing. The professor praised my techniques, but it was all really thanks to Ferdinand and Rosina teaming up to train me on a daily basis. Dang! Ferdinand and Rosina are tough tutors. Ferdinand especially. Excuse me. I spent the next morning studying for my classes next year and working on the item returning magic circle with a hint from Hartmut. After lunch, I changed into my brewing clothes and made my way to brewing class. Today you will be learning to brew in ordonnance, Herscher announced. Nobles use this magic tool more than any other, no matter their status, so you'll be wise to prepare many. Yeah. Herscher displayed the steps necessary to brew in ordonnance on the white cloth on the wall. Everyone simply copied them down. Nobody was surprised this time since she had used the same magic tool when we were making our rejuvenation potions. I had never brewed in ordonnance before, but I personally didn't need to write out the instructions. They were the same as in Ferdinand's study guides, which meant I had already transcribed them when organizing our textbooks. Just as Wolfram and I started preparing to brew then, there came an unexpected request from Herscher. Lady Rosemine, demonstrate the process if you would. Professor Herscher, I've never brewed in ordonnance before. Oh, I am sure you will be fine, Herscher replied, snatching up my ingredients in one swift motion and taking them to the front. Oh, great! I couldn't brew without them, so I conceded and followed after her. Now you may proceed. Oh, great. I could feel the other students watching me as I attempted to brew in ordonnance according to the displayed instructions. First, I turned my snap into a pen, then drew the required magic circle on some parchment, and then had Herscher check it for any mistakes. I then cleaned the pot I was going to be using with wash-in, added a face stone taken from a Phoebe spurred of the wind element, and started stirring it with my stick. Ah, it melted, one student uttered as they stared into my pot. The face stone was breaking down and turning into a yellow gel-like substance. Once it has completely melted, Herscher said, add this magic circle. I held up my parchment for all to see, as if on cue, and then dropped it into the pot. The parchment melted in an instant, and the circle was burned into the yellow gel. I continued stirring and pouring in my mana. The key was to endure even as your arms grew tired. Soon enough, the gel started to harden. The clumps stuck to the pot were gradually drawn together until my stirring created a lone, clicking sound, and a bright flash signified that the process was complete. Odd noises came from the gathered crowd. Would you like to see? I asked as I took the ordonnance, which looked entirely like a yellow face stone, out from the pot and placed it where everyone could observe. It was funny to see the students edging closer and closer for a better look. There are 3 key factors for success: ensuring the magic circle is correct, adding the magic circle only once the face stone's fully melted, and continuing to pour in one's mana at a steady pace until the ordonnance is done, Herscher said, speaking very much like a professor. I returned my staff to normal and swiftly cleaned the pot. Only once the students had returned to their seats to try the process for themselves did Herscher address me again. Lady Rosemine, let me see if your ordonnance can be properly used. Send it to me. I tapped the ordonnance with my staff and said, success, and sent it on its way. Everything worked as intended. The yellow face stone turned into a white bird, went over to Herscher, and then repeated my message 3 times before returning to its original shape. Very good, Herscher said. Do recall I am not your assistant, I replied. What would you have done had my brewing failed? I was experienced enough when it came to making rejuvenation potions, but never before had I brewed in ordonnance. I was fortunate to have succeeded, but if my attempt had ended up being in vain, it would have been a complete waste of time. She could have just done the demonstration herself. Herscher raised an eyebrow. What chance was there of you failing such a beginner brew when you are so skilled in maintaining a steady flow of mana? Furthermore, if you are Ferdinand's disciple, that more or less makes you my disciple as well, does it not? I do not believe so, I replied. An outcome like that was far from what I wanted. I certainly had no intention of spending entire nights debating magic tools, nor did I have the stamina for it. Not to mention, she continued, creating my own ordonnances for every class would leave me with far too many. Is it not most logical for my skilled disciple to perform the demonstration? As I said, I am not, in case you were not aware, I am intending to compile the results of my research into a book, which I shall then give to the library. She interrupted with a smile. What, a new book? Oh, this got your attention. She knows how you work now. Herscher's red lips curled into a grin as my words failed me. It was something of a villainous grin, hardly one you would expect to see on a teacher. I have decided that I will show the book to my disciples first, she added innocuously. This is like a deal with the devil. I need to think this through carefully. I certainly do want to read this book, but I do need to read it before anyone else. Do I need to read it before anyone else? I mean, it can't be easy being Professor Herscher's disciple. Okay, I can resist. I can prove my patience. Stay strong. I need to stay strong. I am not your disciple, I protested, turning down Herscher no matter what, how much it broke my heart doing so. I did it. I refused the devil herself. Someone praise me. But the devil would not give up so easily. She looked down at me with surprise and rested a hand on her cheek. Lady Rosemine, if you serve as my assistant for the rest of the class, I will lend you the book first as a special gift. If you need an assistant that much, bring one to begin with, was what I wanted to say, but what actually escaped me was the complete opposite. I am not your disciple, so I will serve as your assistant only during class. And so, I spent the rest of class checking magic circles with Hersher. It was strange. Despite not having wanted this in the slightest, something had compelled me to agree. Huh? You're Professor Hersher's assistant now? Wolfwood asked me. Only for today, I retorted, pursing my lips with annoyance as I checked the magic circle he had done. Or drawn. This particular sigil is backwards. Redraw it. Ugh, she gotcha. She gotcha. She knows your love of books. The music tea party at the end of classes. It was the day of my tea party with the music professors. Most students were still working toward finishing their classes, and the shenanigans with Eglantine and Anastasius last year were still fresh in people's minds. So I was going to be the only one attending this time. It was technically a show of much appreciated consideration on the professor's part, as they simply wanted to hear my new songs before they were debuted at other tea parties, and did not want to burden me. We were going to be debuting songs that Rosina had arranged, and we were bringing some pound cake with us, much like last year. Charlotte had even taught me how to bring up certain topics of conversation. You were the only one in Ehrenfest who can ask things to the professor, she had said. We are counting on you. I would not make her regret it. I'm a big sister she can rely on, after all. Welcome, Lady Rosemine, Pauline said upon our arrival. My attendants lined up our gifts as we exchanged greetings while Rosina began preparing her harpspiel. Once our greetings were complete, Pauline offered me a seat, then she took a sip of tea and demonstratively bit into a sweet. I did the same with my pound cake, proving it was safe to eat. And thus began our tea party. I glanced over at Rosina to indicate that she would soon need to start playing, and introduced the new song. This is a song dedicated to the goddess of water, I said. Your songs are all dedicated to the gods, Pauline remarked casually. Do you make no others? As I was raised in the temple, the gods are what I'm most familiar with, I replied with a smile. In truth, this applied more to Rosina, who had actually been raised in the temple, and was the one arranging the music and composing the lyrics. Rosina began playing on cue. It was a song I had based on a classical composition, and it was so relaxing that I started to wonder whether it might have some kind of healing effect. In a few years' time, do you think you might transition into making love songs? Oh, no! No! No. Not a good idea. She's not good when it comes to noble euphemisms when it comes to romance. She doesn't... Her story of Cinderella... Or no, maybe it was not Cinderella. It was no, not Cinderella. It was another one that she made herself involving, like a romance involved in their era. But the way she wrote it, it was essentially considered pornography. But in our world, it would have been fine. But no, don't let her do it. If you're going to do that, have Rosina do the lyrics. Seriously. Pauline ventured. Or no, not have Rosina do the lyrics. Ferdinand. Have Ferdinand do the lyrics, because he knows more about this than Rosina, and Rosina probably wouldn't be good with... I don't know how good she'd be with romance. Have either of them do the lyrics. If you're going to have to do something like that, because you would get it wrong, and you would make people uncomfortable. Pauline ventured. You were engaged to Lord Wolfrid in the spring, correct? The engagement was settled, but how does that lead to me producing love songs, I wonder? It is hard for me to imagine the future, I replied, which earned giggles from the professors. I allowed their amusement to wash over me. Rosina could possibly write love songs if she one day fell in love, but with how dedicated she was to her instrument and the amount of time she spent in the temple with me, I could see her easily passing her prime without any romantic happenings whatsoever. Still, I can't make the love songs myself. I could always attempt to make my own love songs, but I thought it was best to avoid such a risk. Ferdinand had described what I thought to be a heartwarming love story as perverted. Exactly! See? This is what I'm talking about. So I could see myself unknowingly debuting a bawdy tavern song during what was supposed to be a refined tea party. Such a blunder would impact the reputation of not just me, but also Ehrenfest on the whole. Well, I mean, dude, if you're gonna end up doing something like it, at least run it by Ferdinand first. Like you did with the story. Because at least then you would know whether it's okay or not. In any case, Ehrenfest's grades are certainly on the rise, Pauline said. Your grades last year surprised us all, and once again, those in your year have passed all their tests on the first day. I hear that Ehrenfest was the only duchy to have any students pass the sociology exam, another professor remarked. Even the lay nobles of the lower years are performing admirably with their instruments, Pauline noted. Lay nobles tended to receive poor marks in music due to the varying qualities of their tutors and instruments, but it seemed that Ehrenfest had raised the skill floor among its lower years. Your duchy's lay nobles say it's all thanks to you, Lady Rosamund. Whatever did you do? I gave a slight smile. It simply suggested that we prioritize bringing all of our students to a certain level of competency, which we achieved by having archducal music instructors teach the children in the winter playroom and the dormitory. The achievement is not purely my own, however. It was Ob Ehrenfest who approved it, and my siblings Wilfred and Charlotte who made it a reality while I was asleep. From there, in order to avoid any further interrogations, I guided the discussion elsewhere. I used a line that Charlotte had given me and asked whether my sons would be spreading through the sovereignty. The professor's eyes gleamed with excitement as they explained the circumstances of the music scene. Oh, indeed, they have spread at a shockingly fast pace, Pauline replied. It must be because they are focused on Prince Anastasius and Lady Eglantine. They can be heard at tea parties of all natures, and we have been invited to several just to play them, the professor added. Your song dedicated to the Goddess of Light is especially popular. Many adore that it tells of Prince Anastasius winning Lady Eglantine's heart, and it spreads readily alongside stories of their romance. Anastasius has shocked the sovereignty and the top-ranking duchies by desiring Eglantine more than becoming king, and again when he declared that they would support Stitchwald as royals, rather than seek the throne for themselves. Those who were supporting Prince Anastasius had only managed to spread words of confusion upon witnessing him choosing Lady Eglantine over all else. Pauline said, as for Prince Stitchwald, it has apparently been decided that Lady Adolphine will become his first wife. Stitchwald had escorted a Middle Duchy's Archduke candidate during his graduation, and then married her as his second wife to begin with, meaning he has yet to take a first wife. Now that Eglantine was marrying Anastasius, he needed an Archduke candidate from a greater duchy in order to become king. Adolphine had apparently been selected for the role. After all, most women the prince's age are already married, another professor intoned. Many were surprised to see Prince Anastasius surrender the throne, but even more were simply relieved that conflict has been avoided, a third added. Yeah, we don't need another purge. Definitely. Sigiswald and Anastasius were both sons of the king's first wife, with similar mana quantities and but generally similar ages. Both had previously been seeking the throne, so most had feared a great war when it came time for succession. Prince Hildebrand is the son of the third wife and is much younger than the other two princes, so he was raised to be a vassal to begin with, one professor noted. I do hope the succession continues smoothly without incident, Pauline said, sounding rather worried. The other professors made small interjections of agreement. In my opinion, it was hard to imagine there being any problems when Anastasius had willingly stepped down and Hildebrand was never even considered for the throne. Are there any other matters you are concerned about, I asked. The biblical fundamentalists in the Sovereign Temple have been a little... One professor began before trailing off mid-sentence, but, well, that is only the temple. Their protests are of no consequence. Indeed, the words of the temple hold very little weight, Pauline said with a refined sympathy as if washing away their needless concerns. We nobles need only listen to other nobles. Splendid results, Lady Rosamund, Hartmut said with a joyous expression when I returned to the dorm and listened to her report from Feline and my attendants. The information I had learned was apparently of enormous value to Ehrenfest, as our lack of connections with sovereign nobles had made acquiring sovereign intelligence near impossible. Given that you were raised in the temple, Professor Pauline was likely probing to see if you were a biblical fundamentalist, Brunhilde noted. It seemed to me that she was relieved you did not respond whatsoever. What's a biblical fundamentalist? I asked, confused. I don't think I've heard the term before. It seemed like I wasn't alone in my bewilderment. There was an uncomfortable silence until Riarda gazed up as if digging through her memories. I do not know the precise details, but I believe they are part of an organization that proclaims the Bible to be the ultimate authority in all matters, and that the king should similarly obey its teaching, she said. It had apparently come into existence while royalty was preoccupied with the Civil War, and its aim was for the temple to have a great deal more authority. If you do not know about it, despite being raised in the temple, Lady Rosamund, then it surely has nothing to do with Ehrenfest. You need not pay these fundamentalists any mind. They are not even nobles after all. And thus ended our discussion about the matter. In any case, I will gather the information collected tonight and report it to Ehrenfest, Hartmut announced. Laisletta turned to me. If you pass your practical lessons tomorrow, then you can finally start going to the library again, Lady Rosamund. Indeed, I replied. Failure is not an option. This afternoon we had more brewing lessons, and these would decide whether I would go to the library. I changed to my brewing clothes and went to the small hall. It appeared that Herscher once again intended to use her magic tool as a white cloth was spread across the wall. Uh-oh. Now then, today we are learning how to make a proposal face stone, Hartman said while projecting the method onto the cloth. These are going to be necessary both when proposing and upon receiving a proposal. You will all need to know how to do this for the future, so take care when making these. The quality didn't matter this time, since it was only for practice, but a proper proposal face stone had to be the best possible face stone that one could make. It would need to have as many elements and as large a mana capacity as one could manage, and the quality needed to be as high as was possible for a face stone with the divine color of one's birth season. Once it was ready, the face stone was dyed with one's own mana, and the elements of one's partner were added. This process was largely unnecessary when a person shared all the same affinities as their partner, but in cases when your partner had an affinity that you did not, it was necessary to use face stones of that element in your brewing. The goal today is to learn, Hersher said, so add one element that you lack, no matter your plans for the future. But I don't lack any elements. Uh-oh. What do you do then? What do you do if you have all the elements? You ought to ask Hersher that. The final step was to add the words of your proposal such that they would appear on the face stone. It was similar to the engraved wedding ring my mama had worn back in my Irano days. I had plenty of experience dyeing face stones with my mana, so I completed that step in a snap and moved to the front table with the brewing pots. Compared to dyeing a face stone for my Jareve, dyeing one for class was simple. You finished dyeing it already? Hersher asked with surprise, her purple eyes sparkling. She received the blue face stone dyed with my mana, brought it close to her face to check, and then whispered, "It truly is dyed." "The face stone is small and not of a particularly high quality. I don't see why it would have taken me very long," I said. "Oh, it should have taken you quite a while under normal circumstances." "Well, she's not normal." I set up a yellow face stone for elemental purposes and a parchment with words on it beside the pot. Given that I had all the elements for the purpose of the class, I prepared a wind face stone. "What words will you be putting in, Lady Rosemine?" Hersher asked and excitedly reached for the parchment. "I'm sorry to disappoint, but they are nothing that special," I replied. It was just a common phrase. So common, in fact, it was pretty much a standard go-to. As a woman, it was generally safe to go with something like, "To my god of darkness," or "I wish to be your goddess of light." Hersher scrunched up her nose with disappointment upon seeing my trite choice. "Lady Rosemine, if you do not choose words that will move a man's heart, I cannot give you a passing grade," she said. "What?" I exclaimed, "but this is just practice. Finishing the face stone should be enough for me to pass, shouldn't it?" "No. You have plenty of time, and since you are already engaged, I would suggest thinking of a proposal that you might give to Lord Wilfrid." "Excuse me? She wants me to come up with sweet nothings right here and now?" "I wish to witness your skill with the pen," Hersher continued. "A task such as this must be easy for someone as well read as you. Lady Elvira's book was filled with many wondrous turns of phrases." No way can I admit that I skimmed over all the love scenes and proposals because I couldn't understand all the divine euphemisms being thrown around. Someone please give me a wondrous proposal to use. For the first time in a practical, I was completely frozen, unable to even move my hands. This task was a lot harder than any of the brews Ferdinand had forced me to learn. What should I do? "I love you," or "My heart is yours" seem like reasonable alternatives, but I can't confirm they're actually okay in this world without speaking to Ferdinand first. Why don't you ask Hersher? Surely she can tell you if that's okay or not. As long as she doesn't go cuckoo about it, you should be fine. Such phrases may have been orthodox back on Earth, but in this world I had no idea how they might be interpreted. I was aware that lengthy euphemisms and poetic allusions were all the rage here, but that wasn't much help when I needed to come up with something on the spot. That is quite a deep frown, Lady Rosemine. I don't think you should be asking a student like me to think of a proposal. Might I suggest you consider what kind of proposal you yourself would wish to receive? Perhaps it might prove useful, Hersher said more or less, cackling at my predicament. I decided to follow her advice. Maybe... I want to make you miso soup every morning, or I want to make a library just for you. I ran my ideas by Hersher, who rejected them on the spot with a look of complete bafflement. Lady Rosemine, what is this miso soup of which you speak? That could be another recipe you can make, she asked. Is it a common breakfast found in Ehrenfest? Not in Ehrenfest, but I wish to eat it someday. Hersher gave a heavy sigh and shook her head. I'll never understand where your interests lie, Lady Rosemine. But do you think such things would move Lord Wilfrid? I suspect he doesn't know what miso soup is, and it seems unlikely he would get excited about receiving a library, so no. Did you not suggest I come up with proposals to suit me, Professor Hersher? Ones that suit you, and that might at the same time move Lord Wilfrid. Show some effort in learning to please men. As someone who had never even had a boyfriend, that was a very big ask. Having been one of those teens with immense girl power who made boys go gaga with every other word, I probably would have gotten more dates back on Earth, and that shoe wouldn't have made fun of me all the time. People always said the same things to me. Boys like girls who can change to suit their tastes, and you don't do that at all. You got too much pride. You charge down your own path way too much. Nobody can keep up. Honestly, the most me-like proposal out there would probably be, I'll make you like me. Get ready to be corrupted. No! Too much pride, huh? Yeah, I agree. Don't use that one. Would men like a proposal that sounds more humble, I asked? Perhaps something like, no! No, not that one! No, 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 no! Hell no! Dear Lord, girl, do you not... She just said one of the raunchiest euphemisms out there. Oh my god. Dear Lord. Please dive in. Hersh's eyes sparkled with what seemed to be pure amusement. She looked a lot like Elvira when she was latching on to a romance story. You're quite the precocious child, aren't you, Lady Rosemary? I can understand. You are of an age where you wish to act like an adult. No! Somebody, Elvira, please, somebody tell her what the noble euphemisms are for romance. Please. Because, I mean, she knows what the whole climbing the towering stairway does. She knows what that one is. But she needs the romance ones. Now. But you should save such words for when you have come of age. For now, go with the phrase you proposed earlier. For when I come of age? Don't tell me it means something obscene. It does! Dude! Should I file this under the list of things Ferdinand would get mad at me about? Yes! Professor Herscher, would this be a phrase that Ferdinand would scold me for were he to learn about it? I asked timidly. Herscher paused and thought for a moment and then smirked. Oh, worry not. Ferdinand will never see these words, she said. Proposals are given only to one's partner, after all. So I'm only safe because he'll never see it. Which means he absolutely would get mad at me. Yes, he would. You're almost out of time, Lady Rosemary, Herscher cautioned. Do you not wish to pass today? I snapped back to reality and quickly returned to brewing. I wanted her to accuse her of wasting my time with this proposal business, but I swallowed my complaints and took out my staff. I had mixed elements when making my girafe, so I completed the brewing itself without issue. Golden words appeared within the dark blue bead-shaped face stone. You passed, Lady Rosemary. Which one did she go with? My heart is yours, I guess? Yes, library, here I come. Wilfried, I passed, I announced upon returning to my table. I can go to the library now. That was fast. I'm still struggling to dye this thing, Wilfried said while glaring at his face stone. That may be because you're approaching it as you would brewing. For a face stone, it's more efficient to add as much mana as you can all at once. When it came to dyeing face stones, the amount of mana used was crucial. Beating down the face stone's resistance was a lot easier when you overwhelmed it with a ton of mana, and then this ended up being a lot more efficient than a slower approach. Lay nobles without much mana had essentially no choice in which method they used, but the arch noble and arch candidates here could probably handle going faster. You could have told me that earlier, Rosebud. You already used a lot of my mana. In that case, you may have to spend a day doing nothing but dyeing the face stone, I said. If you do not dye it completely, then it will gradually start pushing out your mana, so take care to not waste your mana entirely. Mana gets pushed out? Came a surprised question from the nearby students. They had only ever used magic tools to dye face stones, which were of such poor quality they deterred the dust just from sitting in the palm of one hand. So this information was completely new to them. In truth, I hadn't known either before Daniel told me. After all, I was told to dye stones right where I gathered them. All at once, Wilfried muttered. He was focusing on the face stone in a way that made it clear he was pouring mana into it. Hannelore and Ortwin, who were sitting with him for this class, likewise wore serious expressions as they re-gripped their face stones. Done, Hannelore announced excitedly. She was the first to finish. She no doubt had as much mana as you would expect from an Archduke candidate of a greater duchy. And she showed me a face stone that was as red as her eyes. It's all thanks to your advice, Lady Rosemary. Your own skill and mana capacity is what all allowed you to succeed, I replied. Oh no, I am not particularly skilled when it comes to using my mana, so without your advice, I would most likely not have finished any time soon. I was glad to have helped my friend, and I gave her some tips for brewing while I was at it. I wanted her to pass as soon as possible so that we could work together in the library committee. I ended up talking with Hannelore and giving her advice until our brewing class came to an end, which made Wilfried pout. Don't you have any tips for me, he asked. I do have one. You should join the library committee as well. Just what kind of tip is that? Incidentally, I sent a letter asking Ferdinand what "please dye me in your colors" meant. His reply was 3 pages long and tightly bound in packaging that I marked it as confidential. I see. So it's a rather direct way of inviting someone to your bedroom for you-know-what. Lewd indeed. Hersher told me to use it for my actual proposal, but I don't think I will. Now! Why did it have to be 3 pages? Why couldn't you just say what it meant? Dude! Talk about over-explaining. 40 minutes. Okay. I'll end this off here. I'll see y'all next time.